Think back to last season when Xavi got some really important points against Sevilla. And think back even 2 years ago when Ronald Koeman needed to get some points against Sevilla to save his job and give Barcelona any hopes of even winning trophies that season. Those games against Sevilla, as has been the case for the last 20 or so years, have always been a big deal. Unfortunately, against today's Sevilla, it may not feel like as big of a deal, but hey, it's still one of the giants or historical giants of Spanish football. So let's have a little bit of fun with this one. It's the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-0 win over Sevilla. One is 8 points clear. I think it's the most important thing to take away, and I think the biggest deal from the day. After Real Madrid had dropped the 1-0 loss to Mallorca earlier in the day, there was a moment for Barcelona to seize the opportunity. And I think that Barcelona over the last 2 or 3 seasons really have been unable to seize the opportunity when it's come for them, especially in La Liga of late. But if Barca were going to do it against any other team, and I know I said this, today's Sevilla isn't the one of the past, well, even in the past, Sevilla has struggled to beat Barcelona at the Camp Nou, and Barca should have used history to take care of business at home. Barca had not lost any of their last 14 games against Sevilla in the Liga. They had won 10 and drew 4, last falling in a 2-1 defeat in October of 2015, keeping 5 clean sheets in their last 7 against them in the Liga as well. So you can now make that 15 games and 6 clean sheets in 8. And by the way, for the Xavi out crowd, to tell you how well he's done in the start of his Barcelona career, at least in Spain. Again, you can still cry from the Champions League mountains, that's fine. But as far as what he's doing in Spain, well, Xavi has now earned 109 points in 46 La Liga matches, a plus 61. Guardiola was also 109, but a plus 89 for him. Luis Enrique was the best of the bunch with 112 points and a plus 95. And now that they have an 8-point lead, history has favored Barcelona, at least in the past. I'm not putting any jinx on it, of course. I'm just telling you the way it's always gone. And that's Barcelona, as we talk about in the Champions League, they don't win it unless they're the best team in the competition. And the same kind of goes for the Liga too. Barcelona has never wasted an 8-point advantage in the Liga. And that is a disadvantage that Real Madrid has never overcome. The only time that any team has overcome such an advantage, Madrid in 2003-04 lost an 8-point advantage from match day 20 on to Valencia. And it does make me feel sad for the Valencian fans and making me think of, well, just like during the Guardiola years and beyond, you never really know when you're in the glory days when they're happening either. I know that's not the phrase, but let's move on. 2 is one-way traffic. It was kind of like what I said about the Valencia fans. The same goes to Sevilla fans. It's a tough time for them, at least this season. Who knows with the talent they've seen walk out their doors, how they're ever going to get back to notoriety, because the Sevilla I know, or at least the one that I'm remembering and comfortable with, would not have been sitting in a medium to low block like this against Barcelona from the jump. But this is the Sevilla side that is fighting against relegation, and they're on the road, so they knew that just a point could help them in that fight. To Sevilla's credit, though, I don't see how Cadiz, Getafe, or Elche gets more points than Espanyol, Sevilla, and Valencia, the 3 teams right above them right now in the relegation fight, but crazier things have happened. On 9 points, Elche will be eliminated by the middle of March at this rate, so that just leaves those 2 other spots. And for the Liga as a whole, it's not even just those 6. Just by viewing experience, it's more about just the top 10 who kind of give you some pretty good matches, and they're all at 28 points or more, and the bottom 10 who are all 24 points or under, and, well, there have been some tough matches to sit through for those. As far as the one-way traffic of this game, it's summed up in about a 20-minute stretch there where Barcelona, in the first half, had 90-10 possession. So there is suffocating, and there is getting out and having a little bit of space against the break, but Sevilla had no shot in this game, and they were also conceding things to Barcelona that maybe Barca didn't even deserve. In particular, after Busquets had gone out, we'll get to that in a second, De Jong was kind of doing whatever he wanted. He was dropping in deeper, sure, and Sevilla were dealing with that, but Sevilla's press had no effect. De Jong was taking the ball off them as much as he was kind of building up from the back, and they seemed to have no hope. The minute they were able to turn Barca over or the attack falls flat for Barca, Sevilla had no hope of even getting out of their own half. And that is a testament, it must be said too, to that back line. There was a free header for Araujo. There was another moment where Sevilla just didn't look like themselves, not defending at all, and Araujo probably could have scored there, but I don't know. He was pretty far out, distance. Maybe Bono, who was Sevilla's best player in this game, unfortunately, could have got to it. And even Pedri in the midfield, it felt like, yes, him dropping deep was a whole thing that was going to change his day, but he created 6 chances, his personal best on the season. So even from a deeper position, Pedri was still punishing Sevilla today. But as far as Barcelona and that back line, the 0-0 is where they get their compliments, and why I begin to once again compliment the 0 as much as I compliment the 3, because we'll talk about the 3 goals in a second. Sevilla only had 1 shot on target in this game, and Ter Stegen handled the header save just fine. 20 matches, 15 clean sheets, and just 7 goals conceded. And as I talked about last week with Araujo's passing, that was a big focus of discussion last week. If Araujo, Christensen, and Koundé are all healthy and playing, it's hard for any team to break through that. They are press resistant, they can all dribble out of trouble, and all 3 have the speed to track back. There is a bit of room for error when your teammates are so good. and that's why you're seeing so many clean sheets. Ter Stegen also saved this back line for the first 3 months of the year, and now that they're all healthy, they're all returning the favor. And how historic has this defense been for Barcelona? Well, they're the first team in La Liga history, that being La Liga history, dating back to 1929, to register 14 clean sheets in their first 20 matches of the season. That is defensive history. 3 is Kessie's fit. As I had said, Sevilla from the very jump, we're not sure how this match would have played out, but I am assuming that due to the fact that they were playing that medium and low block, that 4 square midfield, I am simplifying it. We're going to talk about it in the podcast with a special guest who people have already guessed. But yes, that's tomorrow. We're going to get into that and those tactics about those 4 midfielders that will change, and now that conversation is changing. But either way, Sevilla were always going to play in a lower medium block. And when Kessie came on, that didn't change what Barcelona wanted to do, but it did. It did change Barcelona's system, their tactics, and how they were going to attack that medium and low block. Unfortunately, with Busquets, just to get that over with, while the replays didn't look like it was too bad, maybe it's at his age, or obviously we don't know how bad it really was, but early reports are that he will be missing about 2 weeks or so, meaning the first leg for Manchester United is likely going to be a no-go. So that means no Dembele, and now that Barcelona's going back to European competition, of course, Xavi's Gala 11 is now having names taken off the team sheet, with Dembele and Busquets on the sideline for that, leaving 9 other players that he would regularly pick for that kind of game. But focusing back to the Sevilla game, with Kessie coming on, it was almost questionable that if Xavi's going to move to pretty much a 4-3-3 like he did, that you would probably want to put a left winger like a Ferran Torres or an Ansu Fati on instead of Kessie, because that moves around the pieces quite a bit, and that forced Gavi to be a left winger. Just move him out to the left wing, and I've got compliments on that later. It works out for Barcelona, yes. But the Kessie part of this is what in the first half didn't really look like it was working out. When he's not making runs against that low block and trying to get into the box behind that back line, there's not much that he does to help Barcelona in build-up or dribbling or attacking into space or combining with teammates. That stuff just, maybe it won't be there, but at least it's not there now. I'm going to be patient, but it doesn't help you win today. Barcelona were also getting a little clogged with Kessie there, and it also, as we talked about with that midfield setup, it took De Jong farther back, so he wasn't able to dribble into space the way that Busquets allows him to do. And Pedri also had to come in to drop in deeper to collect the ball and to build up. So that meant that Kessie had a lot of work to do moving forward and making those runs, because unlike De Jong and Pedri, he's not putting any pressure on the back line with his ability to either dribble or to pass, something that Pedri and De Jong can both do to uncork those low blocks and those medium blocks, again, especially with Busquets supporting them and Gavi also moving horizontally to add that extra body. With Kessie, things become a bit more stagnant because he does limit what Barcelona can do, because not only is he not comfortable with his teammates, I think still just yet, but he is a different kind of midfielder. And if Xavi's going to be, and he kind of has to be, to get the best out of Gavi, Pedri, De Jong, and Busquets, has to be a little dogmatic with the way that those 4 positions are played. Again, we'll talk about it more on the podcast tomorrow. But because Kessie doesn't fit in any of those individual boxes per se with the other 3, it's an odd fit. And not to say some of that blame comes off of Kessie. It is his job to get accustomed and figure out where he belongs in this Barcelona team. But I do take some of that off him a little bit. That very much, as I've said a million times about Griezmann, if you try to fit a round circle into a square peg, it's not going to fit and it's never going to work. I don't think Kessie is that kind of situation like Coutinho and Griezmann said they were, trying to play with Messi. It's not that bad. That was just never going to work. But Kessie is going to need a little bit of time to figure out which even of those 4 roles suits him best. It seems like it's one of those too high interiors, but because he doesn't have an ability to retain the ball at a high level like Pedri, he doesn't have the motor per se horizontally or the versatility to be out on the wing and come inside like Gavi. That means that space-wise, his teammates kind of have to figure him out as much as he's trying to figure out where he needs to be. And as I said, that's going to take a little bit of time. And immediately, for all those who've been out on Kessie, for all those who say he should have been sold in January, well, they got an instant answer and they were unvindicated. I know it's not a word, or devindicated, whatever you want to call it, by the assist that Kessie provided. 2 things can be true all at the same time, and Kessie was big when he needed to be. Wonderful hold up to flick it on to Alba for that first goal to unlock Sevilla. Raphinha also doing a great job setting him up. We'll get to him in a second. Alba, a fine finish as well. And maybe those goals last year don't go in, but Alba's shot hopped right over Bono's leg, finds the back of the net, meaning Barcelona are up a goal at the Camp Nou. They were finally able to open up that low block. And funny enough for Alba, he was just 1 day shy of a full year since he last scored at the Camp Nou. Interestingly enough for Kessie, by the way, too, 3 assists now in his last 150 minutes of play for Barcelona. That means it's an assist every 50 minutes on average, and that's not counting his goals. So very much like we're going to get to with Raphinha, and it's the same still with Ansu Fati, believe it or not, the goal and assist rate for all the players that Kool-Aids are criticizing is still higher than league averages. That's just how good the league leaders at Barcelona have been. And so when the guys who are performing and winning in La Liga are doing their job, there are going to be guys in the secondary that do get criticism because they're not helping the effort, or you're scared about depth, and an injury to Busquets does make your Europa League chances kind of put those in doubt. So I understand why the criticism comes to that next batch of players. We see Dembélé and Busquets go down, and that means that Raphinha and Kessie are going to have a huge month upcoming. 4 is Gavi's earned goal. Like Lewandowski in the first half of the year, I feel like I could talk about Pedri or Gavi every time. So thankfully, Gavi got a goal, so I get to talk about him and get to say good things. With Kessie coming on, that could have put Gavi in an uncomfortable position, but even though he was spit out farther to the left wing, it was helpful to have Alba there. I think that guided Gavi along. As I had said before, he has improved his awareness and his understanding of playing on that left wing more so than last year. It's one of the improvements that we've seen in his game. And thankfully for Xavi, just because Kessie came on the field did not change anything that Gavi was doing. His work rate was the same. His job, his role was as similar as it could be, with the exception of making a little more space for Kessie in the middle of the field. And then he would cut horizontally in a little bit less, also occupying that half space between the right back and the right center back a little less. But that didn't affect how Gavi was impacting this game. I think his crossing is probably even getting better. It's been at least good in the last month. And Gavi's also been a lot more emboldened to crash into the box, and he's rewarded for a goal today for that. I guess the only unfortunate thing is that Gavi's goal did kind of ruin some history. Barcelona were looking for their 5th consecutive 1-goal win in the Liga history. 4 straight was already history, but I always like them to make a little bit more. But I'm also much, much happier to win by 2 goals or more in any Barcelona game at all. And headline 5 is more Raphinha. He either had the pre-assist, the assist, or a goal in this one. A fantastic day, a man-of-the-match performance for a guy that people were saying was absent in the first half. But it is a little bit of a conundrum where you watch a whole game and you go, when is Dembélé going to break this all open? And for Raphinha, it's not when he's going to break it all open. It's when are you going to have him finish something, or when is that moment going to come when he does that final thing that winds up creating a goal contribution. He has more goal contributions with his 3 goals and 4 assists than anybody else in the Liga. I know it's just been 1 month, but that means that a player who's out of form seems to be in form, at least in the Liga. And I know he scored the goal, but if you think of Raphinha as an assist giver, as an inverted winger, then it makes a lot of sense as to what he is and what he provides to Barcelona. When wingers tend to invert, the idea is that he's a goal scorer. I completely understand that. That's how the idea was for Coutinho when he was put on the left wing. That's how Alex Sanchez was as well. You think those inverted wingers are supposed to be goal scorers, and he was that at Leeds. But I think he was that at Leeds because he had to be. And I think we're seeing Raphinha much more naturally, almost like the way he plays for Brazil, that if you think of him as an assist giver, as an inverted winger, we talked about before how that doesn't entirely make sense in Xavi's system. But he is still finding a way to have actual output. His 8 assists is now more than Dembélé's 7 in the Liga in a lot less minutes. And the goal caps all that off. The assist, that helps his confidence. The pre-assist for the first goal is also a pretty good piece of skill. That helps his confidence. But the goal at home, the applause him and Alba got as they were coming off the field, those things do wonders for a man's confidence. And as we've said many, many times throughout, and it should be the theme here from this game, Raphinha and Kessie, those 2 coming up big, honestly, I think you put more responsibility on those 2 to decide the next month and maybe even those Manchester United matches than anybody else. Because you do kind of figure out what you're going to expect and what I think we've grown to now expect from De Jong and Pedri and Gavi, and what you should expect from Lewandowski and what you expect from that back line and Balde. So what are Kessie and what are Raphinha going to give you? Those are the big questions that we're going to be answering all month long. But before that, tomorrow, we've got a lot to talk about Barcelona's midfield. Again, that conversation has completely changed with Busquets' injury, but I think there's still a lot of good stuff to talk about, as well as what Xavi's ideas are for the remainder of this season and the next month to come. So make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of that. And as always, until next time, Forza Barca.